you are welcome to one of such. As usual, it will be eye-opening. You'll get to increase in knowledge and understanding of the topic compared to how you started at the end of the show. Today, we are talking about dyslexia on this occasion of World Teachers Day. And again, for the millionth time, happy World Teachers Day to everyone who is turning the life of a student, of a pupil, of a child in a way that is so beyond words. And even the child sometimes does not even understand what is in there. So we say shout out to all the teachers who got four eyes and are seeing way beyond the present and are inspiring them to change and also to believe in themselves. Thank you for being and for building people. So we're talking about this learning disorder that a number of people might not have adequate information about. And that's why we want to understand what it is, what are the symptoms, how do you notice it? But importantly, we want to identify early signs. How do you quickly see in a child that this is dyslexia? And what do you do about it? What is the role of the teacher? What's the role of the parent? What's the role of the society? Because information is important. And what do we do with that information? And as my guest this morning, I have someone who's a seasoned educator with over 30 years of experience in education delivery, research, administration, and management. She's certified in a number of things, including psychometric testing, assessment, and access arrangement, and also holds practitioner accredited status. And she's a board certified cognitive specialist, as well as a member of the British Dyslexia Guild, British Dyslexia Association, as well as the British Psychological Society. And she has over 30 years of experience. That is just beautiful. And she is the managing director of Dyslexia Nigeria. She is Dr. Adrienne Tikolu. Good morning.
Good morning, and how are you?
I am very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And again, happy World Teachers Day.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
So let's get to the basics and understanding what dyslexia is, the definition, the overview, really.
All right. So thank you so much again. So dyslexia is a learning difference, and please note that I said it's a learning difference, not a disability. It's a learning difference that it sort of shows up as a difficulty with language. Okay, so it's a learning difference related to language. And by language, I would mean speech, reading, having to do with accuracy, fluency, or comprehension. So all of the areas of language, and it's a difficulty with those areas of language. So reading, as in, like I said, accuracy, fluency, or comprehension, writing, say handwriting, putting your ideas down on paper, phonological awareness, that is associating letters and sounds together, and language processing generally. So you always see it as a difficulty with language processing and language, usage. But then it also comes with strengths. So they also find strengths in other areas like problem solving and thinking outside of the box. And it has nothing to do with intelligence. So usually you'd find that they have average high intelligence. So for everyone, dyslexia is a learning difference that relates to language.
Mm. All right, so that's a way to look at it, not just a disability or a disorder, it's a learning difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so breaking it down, someone has heard the words, but how does this thing present itself?
Fine. So it is a specific learning difference. So it's related to the area of language specifically. And it presents in different ways at different life stages. So in nursery or early preschool, nursery, you would find the early signs to be things like delayed speech. So the child wouldn't speak early. The parents will start getting worried by 2 or 3 years old. So you have delayed speech. Of course, speech is one of the main forms of language. Then you find the child doesn't like anything to do with reading. Is having difficulty learning his alphabets. He Probably might be ambidextrous. So today he's using his left hand, tomorrow he's using his right hand. He has difficulty with rhyming words. So, nursery rhymes and all of that, he'll have difficulty with that. And generally, he doesn't like reading. Likes to do things with his hands, but when it comes to reading, he's not really interested. Now, by the time you get to primary school, you find that he's still having difficulty with decoding words. So reading basic, simple words. In fact, he would mix up reading the same word. You could see like saw and see it again on another page and don't remember that that's what he just read. His reading would be inaccurate, would be slow, would be choppy. He would begin to have problems with comprehending what he's reading. So even when he begins to read, he's reading slowly, he's not really comprehending what he's reading. He can't tell you what he's read. He has difficulty putting his ideas on paper. So having an essay, has wonderful ideas, usually quite smart, but still not be able to put his ideas on paper, have difficulty with spelling. Then he might also begin to show some difficulty with working memory. So remembering instructions, following instructions. He might have slow processing of information, but likely still around the area of language, so reading and writing and spelling. In secondary school, the problems, if nothing has been done, is now really compounded. Because of the volume of information that he has, he's now become much slower than his peers. He's still very good in other areas like sports, music, drama, art, drawing, painting. But when it comes to reading, and by that time, of course, he should have learned how to read to learn. Because when the child is young, we teach them to read, and then they have to read to learn. So he's now beginning to lag. His reading is still very slow, it's choppy. And even when he has gotten good accuracy, his fluency is a problem, and so comprehension is a huge problem. So when he's studying on his own, he's spending hours studying, but he's not translating to information. He's usually slightly slower with processing information. He forgets information easily, so doesn't do well in his exams. He's quite smart. He spent a lot of time studying, but in exams, he just doesn't do as well. Doesn't have enough time, doesn't remember, and might also not remember the spelling. So it shows up differently. Also shows up in adulthood because it is who you are. And throughout the life stages, there are different signs. In adulthood, he would have found strategies around the difficulties. So either he's using spell checkers for spelling, still having problems with spelling. You probably have to read a paragraph 2, 3, 4 times to get the gist of it. Probably having some organization problems, time management. And he really can't understand why he's still not having difficulty with reading. So it presents differently at different life stages.
How does this thing set in? How does a person develop or a child develop dyslexia?
Thank you. So dyslexia is inherited. It has a genetic side to it. You inherit the gene from your parent or grandparent. Just the way you inherit the color of your eyes or the texture of your hair, the color of your skin, you inherit that gene from your parents. And like I said, it is a learning difference. And because we're all different physically, the same way we're different with the way our brains process information. It's not technically something is wrong, it's just different. So it's largely inherited. I mean, there is acquired dyslexia where a person would have learned to read and then probably have some trauma to a portion of the brain that relates to reading and would develop signs of dyslexia. That's acquired dyslexia. But largely when we're talking about dyslexia, we're talking about developmental dyslexia, and that's largely inherited.
Is there anything that can be done to prevent this?
No. That's the short answer for it. It's like, is there anything that can prevent me from being black, or having, straight hair or curly hair? No, you inherit that from your parent. Is there anything that can be done with the difficulties or challenges that might come? Absolutely. Absolutely. But, you can't help what you inherit.
All right, so let's get to talking about the early detection then, so that these can be managed. So at what point should you start to look forward to? Now, I understand that you mentioned it's developmental. So when a child is supposed to be speaking, so what are those things that once you start to see them, you should pay attention, or before you even start to see them, you should start to check for some things that a child ought to be doing at an age.
Awesome. I mean, you're already talking about early identification, and that's what it is. You can't identify what you don't know. So you just have to know the signs. You have to know how it presents. And this is the most important thing because it's right there in front of teachers, it's right there in front of parents. They just don't know what it is. So they can't tell you this is it. So we really must know the signs. When we're talking about delayed speech, I mean, other things can also present as delayed speech. So it's not only dyslexia. However, it is one of the main signs of dyslexia. Not every dyslexic would have delayed speech, but it is one of the
Mm,
signs. But the most compelling thing would be that the child is having difficulty with his alphabets, and the sounds of the alphabets when he's really young. The others in the class have gotten right onto it. They, learned the sounds, and he's still struggling with the sounds. He's struggling with associating the sounds with the letters. So the name is C, but the sound is K, and this is the way we write it, and for A and T for T, and struggling with blending that together as cat. For a child that is not dyslexic, that comes really easy. Once you teach them, they get on it. But a child that is dyslexic will just find it more difficult to do. It's going to take a little longer. The same way the speech has taken a little longer. So when you begin to see difficulty with learning alphabets, difficulty with associating the letters or the sounds, difficulty with rhyming, the child difficulty with writing, holding the pencil and, writing, making those signs on the paper, then you begin to suspect that there might be something going on. Some of the signs, present normally in young children, but if they progress and it's persistent, then you want to begin to, pay more or closer attention. And that's why you need to know the signs. Also, they reverse their letters a lot. So if you're seeing
mm,
reversals, mixing up B's for D's, mixing up P's and Q's, to the dyslexic brain, a B is just a shape, like a chair. If I turn a chair upside down, it's still a chair. If I turn it sideways, it's still a chair. But when you're looking at letters, if I put a B standing up, it's a B. If I turn it to the left, it's a D. If I face it up, it's a P. So, it then becomes difficult for it to decipher what is this. So it can mix up, the letters and reverse the letters as well. So that's also a sign. So those are the signs you generally be seeing in preschool, difficulty with sounds. But by the time you get to primary school, you should then begin to see more signs because the child is smart. And I keep saying that dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence, and dyslexics have average to high intelligence. So he's really smart. He can speak his way out of anything once he's gotten on to speaking. He has very good general knowledge, good with his hands. But when it comes to reading, there'll be a lot of avoidance tactics. I want to sharpen my pencil. He's tired. I'm having tummy ache. When it's spelling day in school, probably doesn't want to go to school that day. He's still not able to decode the words. He's reading really slowly. Dyslexia has to do with reading. Why it's important to identify early is because everything we do in school rests on reading. In fact, we live in a literate world, a world that is really largely based on literacy. You have to read the science, you have to read information. So everything rests on reading. So we teach you to read, we give you the tools so that you can use the tools for yourself, so you can then read to learn. So if you're not making that progress in early primary, it's important that we begin to look at it. What teachers fail to notice is the struggle. Because the child is smart, he will fall through the cracks easily. He can speak his way. If you ask him the questions, yeah, he can speak through it. But when it comes to reading and writing and spelling, you just find this, unexpected difficulty. I say unexpected because the child is usually quite smart. So those are the things you're looking at. You need to know those signs to be able to signpost the child adequately. And early identification means that we can do intervention early. Now, if you begin an intervention in grade 1, by the time the child is in grade 3, you might not even detect any difference with the child that is not dyslexic with his reading and writing and spelling. Because they're quite smart, they get on it quickly if you do the intervention. Now, if you don't, and the child struggles through to grade 4, he might never be able to catch up to the level of proficiency with his peers, ever. So early identification is so important that it's something that we must do. We must screen every child. We must check, at the end of nursery, we must do a phonics test. We must see how well is he associating letters and sound. Is he struggling? At the beginning of primary school, we must do some sort of screening to identify those that are showing the signs of dyslexia so that we can begin to, design interventions that work.
Thank you very much. If you're joining us for the first time, you are listening to Soul Food on Smooth 98.1. And the topic of discussion this morning is dyslexia, the early intervention, the early identification, as well as the management. So if you have any question or any contribution, the WhatsApp line is open, as well as the call line. The WhatsApp line is 0809 444 0981, while the call line is 0201 448 9981. All right, so now that the person, with the information that you've given, they have an idea. You mentioned screening. So once you see these things, you have to go to a doctor, or is it something that can be self-diagnosed, or you have to go through some special screening?
Thank you. So responding to dyslexia, the signs can also be staged. And we don't want to make it appear like it can only be a specialist that can, identify. Yes, maybe when you want to get to diagnosis and you want definitive information about what's going on. But to identify it, teachers, everyone can do this. What we need is you can start with like a checklist. What are the signs of dyslexia? You don't have to remember it by heart, teachers. Have it as a form, a checklist. 1, is he reversing his letters? 2, is he struggling with the sounds? 3, does he know his alphabet? There's a checklist. And all you do is tick off which ones you are seeing. And when the signs are many and clustered and consistent, then this tells you to move to the next stage, which is a basic screening. And a basic screening would again just look at your phonological awareness, look at a bit of your processing, but largely phonological awareness, because that is the sign or the hallmark of dyslexia. It's difficulty with letters and sound. This is the building blocks of reading. So we go on to a basic screening, and all teachers can do this. Now, when you have a basic screening and you think, oh my goodness, this child is showing a lot of the signs, then begin right away phonological awareness intervention. Teachers know what I'm talking about. You just need to do more in terms of associating letters and sounds. You need to begin some sort of multisensory teaching. Teachers, again, know what I'm talking about. But the thing is, do a checklist. How many signs are you seeing? Are there many? And they're consistent and persistent? Once you do that, you can go into a screening and begin an intervention. Do that for 1 term. At the end of that term, if you are not seeing any changes, then you need to do a full diagnostic assessment. Unfortunately, only an educational psychologist or a dyslexia expert, someone that has been trained in diagnosis, can conduct this. Unfortunately, medical doctors cannot. They're not trained in that area. Dyslexia, even though it has like a medical side to it because it's neurological, having to do with the way the brain is processing language, it is actually presenting in education. So it's more educational. Okay, so a medical doctor would not be able to diagnose dyslexia. And then you would have to go for a full diagnostic assessment.
Thank you. Now, before we come to other intervention and what it looks like, and also the role of the teacher, I'll take this message from Chimezie, who says, "Good morning. With what the doctor has said so far, I can conclude that dyslexia is hereditary. Aside from that, there are no other ways it can be acquired. Am I correct?" I think no, but you want to say something about that?
Well, it can be acquired, that is, you can get it from trauma to a portion of the brain that relates to reading, but the person would have already learned to read, but just lose that ability. But largely, it's hereditary, yes.
So now I would like to talk about some of the don'ts. I believe we've mentioned a lot of do's in terms of what should be done for a person once you start seeing the signs and the identification. But what are some of the don'ts, especially again, as some might not have this level of information? I just hope this information is getting out wide. So once you start seeing these things, or once it looks like this child is not catching up with the peers, what are the things you shouldn't do that probably could worsen things?
First, do not say, oh, it will go away with time. No, you have to do something now. So don't get impatient. Don't begin berating the child and labeling the child as lazy, not doing enough. Recognize that everyone wants to succeed. And if a child isn't succeeding, there is a problem. So don't berate the child, but don't wait. Don't say, oh, it will go away, especially when a child has speech delay. Oh, yes, some people will say the mother, had some palm oil, or I mean, there are all kinds of things that I hear. But the thing is, the child is having speech delay, get speech therapy. Don't wait. If a child is having difficulty with letters and sounds, don't wait. Start intervention right away. So the catchword here is, or words are, don't wait.
All right, thank you. We'll take a breather, and when we come back, we will continue and finish this conversation on dyslexia. Again, if you'd like to ask your question, the WhatsApp line is open. That is 0809 444 0981. And we're streaming live on YouTube as well. So you can go there. You can also drop your questions and your comments and share with someone who you think will need this information we're sharing. You're listening to Soul Food on Smooth 98.1.
Name is Uzo, and you're listening to Smooth 98.1.
Is there any other, before we get to the role of the parents? I mean, I think we've mentioned this thing. I just want us to be crystal clear and repeat it over and over again. But is there any other thing you'd like to touch on that I have not asked before now?
I think we've touched on the basic thing. The next thing would then be, what can schools do, what can teachers do, and what should parents do, really. It is a short time, so you've covered most of it in this time that we have.
Okay. So we're coming back.
Weekdays from 6:30 a.m.
We are Smooth 98.1, 26 minutes past 8 o'clock. We are talking about dyslexia. It's World Teachers' Day, and we're learning about this learning difference. My guest is Dr. Adrienne Tikolu. She's the Managing Director of Dyslexia Nigeria. We're streaming live on YouTube, and that is at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Again, at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. WhatsApp line is for your questions, if you have any. 0809 444 0981. Again, 0809 444 0981. While the call line is 0201 448 9981. So what can schools do? Do they need to have a special teacher for children who are experiencing this learning difference, or they need to teach their teachers to handle this? But before I take that question or your response, let me take this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name and location?
Bola.
Please turn down the volume of your radio set.
Are you okay now?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
I greet your guest there. She's speaking very, very well. I have a son. I think he's an adult now. He's 37 now. When he was in the primary school, in a public school, I can understand. I understood that he he had difficulty in writing. And if he writes anything, he tries to give an answer, he cancels, and writes another one and cancels, and writes another one and cancels. And he cancels about 5 or 6 sentences, the same thing. So, because we are poor, we don't know what to do. We just start beating him, and up till now he doesn't talk. He's very intelligent, very very intelligent, but he hardly can talk with you for long. He doesn't like talking so much, but he knows everything. And he didn't do well in school at such, but he's very very intelligent, very very intelligent. But well, it's an adult now. What I'm trying to pull out is that how do we do with people who are poor and put their children in public schools in Lagos? And what do you do about that? What do? You have no money to call. You don't know what to do. That's the problem. That's what I'm trying to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Adrian.
Yes, unfortunately, these are the things that we do see. Years of struggle will sink your confidence, will sink your self-esteem. And I can imagine if the child is now withdrawn, doesn't feel comfortable, confident, even related with other people, and these are the downsides of unaddressed dyslexia, the whole new topic on its own. It's not a matter of status. Dyslexia affects the entire population, 20% of any population. What we must do is train teachers. Teachers are the ones that are in the face of dyslexia in schools, because dyslexia shows up in schools when we begin to learn to read and study. If teachers know the sign, teachers can make a huge difference. You know how many children teachers would impact in one lifetime? One teacher can impact so many children. So training teachers, we can't take away from that. Raising awareness also. If parents are aware, teachers are aware, if government is aware, if everyone is aware, we know what it is. Then we begin to find, what do we do? So once a child is in school, he should be entitled to everything that allows him to succeed. It's a school problem. Policies should be in place, regulations should be in place, so that we're identifying children, we're supporting them. Can you hear me? Did you lose me there? Hello?
I didn't get you for a bit. Can you repeat what you said about once a child is in school?
Once a child is in school, he must be given all the tools he requires to succeed. I can hear you. Can you hear me? No? Probably the network. Oh, no. You can't hear me.
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me now? No?
I can hear you well.
Oh, okay. I thought you couldn't hear me. So I was just saying that, once a child is in school, he must be given everything he requires to succeed. Yeah, I'm speaking. I think it's the network, though. All right, good. So we must train
you can
teachers.
go on.
We must train teachers so that they might be able to identify dyslexia and remediate dyslexia in schools. Do schools need a special teacher? Well, some children struggle a little more than others, and class teachers might not be able to cope with the level, of attention that may be required. A few children, like 4%. And so, yes, it would be good for a school to have a learning support unit where they support all kinds of differences, not just dyslexia. What should schools do? Train their teachers. We can't say it enough. 20% of any population means 20% of your school is dyslexic, is on that spectrum, whether you can identify it or not. If you have 30 children in a class, that's a huge number, right? About 6 of them is dyslexic. So dyslexia is in your school. Train your teachers. We also need to put money behind raising awareness. People need to know what dyslexia is. It's across the whole lifespan. People must know. For schools, they must implement some sort of a, response to intervention system. Do a screening, do intervention, check. Do a screening, do intervention, check. So that you can escalate if a child is not doing as well as you expect. Schools must also create an inclusive environment, an environment that allows everyone to be themselves and supports everyone's difference. Differences abound. We're all different in different ways. And so schools must also be inclusive and do ongoing monitoring. For parents, you need to be your child's best advocate. If you notice anything, go to the school, talk to someone, seek support, look for assessment, provide an environment at home that is also supportive. The child is having a hard time in school. Don't be at home giving him a knock, beating him up, taking away his spare time, taking away his gains because he didn't do so well in reading. Provide the support, be your child's advocate, read with your child, provide materials, and encourage skill development. The child is good in other things, encourage it. If he's good in music, let him do music. If he's good in sports, let him play sports. Don't take those away as punishment for not learning how to read in time. For teachers, differentiate your instruction. Learn about dyslexia. Use multisensory techniques to teach. Build strong relationships with the students so they can come to you when they're having difficulty. And then also collaborate with other teachers. Find what works.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Quite lucid, and I think it gives so many action points. Thank you. And one thing that I've heard is that you cannot beat dyslexia out of a child, which is something that looks like it's something we turn to. You cannot beat dyslexia out of a child. But on a final note, I'd like to ask, what about an adult who didn't get enough intervention while they were younger?
There's always something that we can do. Adults should still have diagnostic assessments so that we know which particular areas they're still struggling with. And then there's assistive technology. If you're struggling with spelling, you can't go back to school to learn spelling, use a spell checker. Learn time management skills, get organized. If you're having difficulty with comprehension, learn the strategies to comprehend. Now is the time to find what works for you. Again, you can't take yourself away from dyslexia. It's who you are. You can alleviate the problems. So find your strength, speak to your strength, do things that bring out your strength, and run away for those things that make you look stupid to everyone. Are you there?
Thank you. And it's the perfect excuse to learn more about dyslexia because October is dyslexia. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
This is the part why. Can you hear me? Are you still there?
I'm here. Never mind, it's the internet, but I'm
All
here.
right. So I mentioned that October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. So it's the perfect excuse to learn more about dyslexia and for us to do more about it for educational institutions, for the government, for individuals, everyone to come together and for us to be concerted in our effort in dealing with dyslexia. Thank you for your time, Dr. Adrian. And for people to check out your platform, where do they go to?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Please follow us at Dyslexia Nigeria on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We have a center in Lekki in Ikeja. We have a website, www.dyslexianigeria.com. We're easy to find.
All right. Thank you. Oh, we made it to the end of the conversation despite everything that the network did. Now you can find a repeat or another broadcast of this on YouTube, so you can go back to watch it all over again and share with your family and friends.
The network.
Early interventions. Next week we will. My name is Oluwaseun Olusegun.
Thank you.
My God, that was such a turbulent network.
The network, oh my days.
Now, the weird part
Incredible.
is right now I can hear you crystal clear. Feels like a demon.
It is. I usually think the internet is a demon. It targets you.
Because it's perfect right now. Perfect.
I didn't hear
It's so
anything you said
weird.
at the end. Yeah, exactly. Once
My
they know
God.
people are listening, then it's a problem. But anyway, this is the problem with the internet, isn't it? And all these remote meetings. But thank you for having me. It was a good time here. And thank you for raising awareness about dyslexia. So important.
We'll continue this definitely.
Thank you. Take care then.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.